Go ahead and call to order our ad hoc meeting for the street naming. And I'm going to make an attempt to wear a mask and speak, but let me know if it seems as though that my speech is a little convoluted because of the mask, and I'll switch over to my shield for you to better hear me. So y'all just kind of keep that in mind for me a little bit and let me know how we're doing on that. I've had some experience with my students are saying, I can't understand what you're saying. And, well, okay. So, all right, so it is 6:01 as we call this meeting together. And at this point in time, I would like to go ahead and have roll call. Samantha, would you do that for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Karen Shields. Lena Montoya. Nick Landis.
Present.
Ronald Gunsel.
Here.
Summer Mann. Vanessa Westbrook.
Here?
Anthony Davis.
Here.
Elizabeth Godfrey Weidig.
Here.
Fred Guerra.
Present.
Gilbert Jordan.
Present, ma'am.
Bert Eugen.
Did you get me?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Priscilla Harrell. Wilma Jaffe.
JV, here.
JV. Alicia Bono. David Glickler. We have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. All right, at this time, if my colleagues would please take a look at the minutes from our last meeting, which was 10/29. And if there's any corrections, please let us know.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have
I second.
Thank you. We have a second. And minutes have been approved. I believe with a unanimous decision, we don't need to go on further. All right, with our minutes, no corrections are needed. Okay. All right, at this point in time, we have a citizen's comment, and we actually have a citizen who has come out to address us. Citizen, please come forward. Please note that you have 3 minutes to address the committee, and we certainly appreciate you coming out this evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Should I take
ma'am.
my mask off? Okay. First, I'd like to thank the City of Kyle for creating this committee and for each of you serving on this historical committee for the City of Kyle. My name is Laura McMahon, and my family and I have lived in the area for 18 years. According to your previous meeting, the proposed rebel name change should be something that's simple, includes heritage, non-political, resonates with the community now and in the future generations, includes diversity. It recognizes the City of Kyle as initiating a proactive step, repairing the damage from the past while consciously acknowledging history and actively doing something about it. Also, it should meet the requirements of the City Charter, Chapter 8, Section 332. A few weeks ago, I submitted my recommendation for the name change from Rebel Road to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Drive, Street, whichever works. The name Rebel Road has a very controversial connotation and is not welcoming to City of Kyle and the diverse community. Changing the name to Dr. Martin Luther King would be symbolic to the existing name, and it would bring the community together. Dr. King was a minister, an advocate for equality, inclusion, justice, nonviolent, peaceful protest, and a person who embodied leadership. His well-known speech of I Have a Dream wasn't his first speech that everyone knows. His first speech was actually a prayer pilgrimage of freedom in May 1957 with the topic of voting right. How relevant is that today? Upon research, I found there's very little in Kyle that discussed the contributions African Americans made in Kyle. According to Images of Kyle by Betty Harrison and the Hayes County Historical Commission, In 1961, Mr. Joe Johnson, who the new high school in Buda is named after, he was a coach of the first African American named Clarence Green to attend a school in Kyle. In a scrapbook called Clear Springs and a Book and Limestone Ledges, A History of San Marcos and Hayes County, it discusses Reverend Porter and the oldest church in Kyle. It was an African American Episcopal church located south of town near a loop on First Street. That particular church had the largest bell in Kyle, and it stood behind the church. There are many other historical events and historical sites that many residents are not aware of. I believe the name change could spark interest in Kyle history. Some of the other things was the construction of Claiborne House, Sledge Chapel, even Skyview Cemetery. I understand other cities may have streets named as Dr. King's honor. However, Kyle and Buda are a few of the cities in Hayes County who have not acknowledged him and what he stood for. Renaming Rebel Road to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would promote inclusiveness, diversity, and show the city of Kyle as being a leader of change in these current times. I ask the community to please consider this name change. I'm going to end with a quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Thank you for your cooperation.
All right, Ms. McMahon, thank you very much for coming to speak to us this evening. We sincerely appreciate it. And you are the first of a citizen to come in and utilize this citizen comment time. So we appreciate your time and coming and sharing your thoughts with us this evening. All right, any comments from any of my committee members? Okay, all right, thank you again. All right, so next we're going to move to the City Code of Ordinance as it relates to public places. And what I want to attempt to do this evening is for us to take a look at what is listed in the guidelines, in the law, in the information that we're getting from the city charter, which is Article 7, that really gives us a pathway or framework as we look at our work. In just a second, staff member will share a presentation with us on Article 7, and I would like for everyone, we've had this charter about naming places already sent to everyone. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it. I believe in you notice it, we talked about it, you've read it, and now we're going to go into a deep focus on what is said in this charter as we begin to look at our task at hand, which is the naming of this street. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Ms. Samantha to go ahead and give us a little presentation on the charter, Article 7, as it pertains to the task that we have at hand, to see what things directly call for us to be thinking about and what things we don't necessarily have to do because it goes to another body. So with that in mind, Samantha?
Sure. So this really is just a read line by section of Article 7. So the first thing in this section is the definitions. So you'll see here, I will try not to just read every slide to you. It's in front of you here, but it talks through what a public place is, what renaming means, and what naming significance means. And I made sure to bold that section because I understand later we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the use of categories. Mm-hmm. And the categories are lined in this section of the definitions of natural, cultural, geographical, historical, social, or familial significance to the area. Next in this section is the general, that council is the final authority. And I think this is probably the section that has the least to concern this committee with because it talks about that the naming of public places is done by council. Next is the naming criteria. And this goes through a couple different bullets here. The more prominent a public place, the more significant the name should be. The name should be appropriate to the particular public place by reflecting native wildlife, history, flora. A lot of similarities here to the categories that were mentioned in the previous slide. Consideration should be given to reflecting the city's ethnic and cultural diversity. Corporate naming in exchange for due consideration shall be allowed on a case-by-case basis. And then continuing on to the next slide is the next bullet, which is the following questions should be considered for determining naming significance. 1, will the name have historical, cultural, and social significance for generations to come? Will the name engender a strong and positive image? Will the name memorialize or commemorate people, places, or events that are of enduring importance to the community or the nation? Will the name engender significant ties of friendship and mutual recognition and support within the community or those outside the community? Will the name be identified with some major achievement or the advancement of the public good within the community or the nation? Will the name be particularly suitable for the facility based on the location history of the facility or the surrounding neighborhood? Will the name have symbolic value that transcends its ordinary meaning or use and enhance the character and identity of the facility? And will the naming request that accompanies a financial gift result in the undue commercialization of the facility? Now you'll see that some of these are very specific to a facility, which is not the purpose of your committee here, but I think these are good questions for everyone to remember that, again, this is right back to the Code of Ordinances in Article 7.
All right, thank you very much. Would you go back to the second slide, section 38.331.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, back it up. There you go, thank you. I wanted to call attention to the fourth bullet on this particular slide. The idea of naming significance means the level to which a name is appropriate to a certain place. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is that the vice chair and I had a discussion, and as we were trying to come up with a strategic way of being able to look at suggestions, we decided that we would take a look at putting categories in front of us, the committee members as a whole. And so you can see that this fourth bullet has nature, cultural, geographical, historical, social, and familial significance to the area is the categories that we've come up with. We've already sent information to some of you about this already in an email, because some of you had went ahead and began to start taking suggestions that you were receiving from neighbors, family, friends, citizens, etc., how we were going to be able to look at the suggestions. We expect there will probably be many suggestions coming in from across the city in regards to our task at hand. And so we've come up with a somewhat of a strategic way of being able to get these suggestions in front of us, where we're going to put them into categories. So I wanted you to see where these particular categories came from. And most of what we're going to be doing is going to be to interpret the city charter and what our charge is. And so you can see that these categories have been set up, again, by looking at the slide in front of you and on the screen, that there are 6 areas where a suggestion will come in to one of you, and then you will then put it into one of these 6 areas, and we'll start our discussion about them. Now, the other thing I wanted to pay attention to was on slide number 5, there were a series of questions that the charter is asking us to ask ourselves about this particular, the task that we have in hand. And so as I was reading through and reviewing this charter, some of these questions popped out to me to say, okay, this is kind of a lens to take a look at When we look at the first one, for instance, where it says, will the name have historical, cultural, and or social significance for generations to come? I think that's a great question to ask ourselves as we start looking at the suggestions in the categories. Generations to come. What is it that 10, 20 years from now, our children, who for many of us will be adults, our parents, will be able to say to their children about why a specific name was given to this piece of road that pretty much is, a vast moving area within the city of Kyle. Will the name endanger, engender a strong and positive image? So I saw, again, a strong and positive image. And one of the things I think we can ask ourselves is, one of the reasons why we're looking of making the name change to this particular road happens to be this particular description, strong and positive image. And over the years, the strong and positive image, where it may have started, it's not where we've ended for many people in our community who have said to us, yes, the name should be changed, which is connected to some other community name changes that are going around. So I wanted us to think about that also. Now, there was one other that I wanted us to look at, and that was the one that said, will the name be identified with a major achievement or advancement to the public good within the community of the nation? Well, we're looking at both. We're looking at our community and again, and a nation. But as we think about where it is that we live here in the city of Kyle, what is being said about the naming of this particular street? As you remember, we had a lot of comments from our neighbors in regards to the last potential name. It didn't sit well with others, and others thought that something better could be addressed. And so I think we want to think too, in the bigger set of time, what is it that we're trying to do? We want to be positive. Many of you said last time when I asked for your specific perspective, we noted the word several times of a reflection of diversity. We talked about simple. We talked about history or the historical perspective. These are some of the things that popped out from each of you the last time. So again, some things that we want to think about as we are going through this process of our looking at this task that we have. So the plan is at this point is that as we begin to start bringing in names and start putting names into these categories for us to be able to take a look at, that we start whittling down the list. And so the plan is to look at each of the 6 categories and look at the number of the number of names. And hold on one second, I'm gonna take off this mask because it's irritating me now. Put my shield on. Thank you, and excuse me. I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay. So as we take a look at the 6 categories and we begin to look at the suggestions within the 6 categories, that we start whittling down those suggestions by discussion and ultimately a vote from the committee. And we go through each.
Madam Chair, we can't hear the question or the comment.
Microphone's off.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry. I turned it off. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if I turned it off or not, but okay, thank you. So as we're looking at the 6 categories, we will be looking at the suggestions within each of the categories, and through discussion and ultimately a vote, we will narrow down our suggestion in each category. Once we've gone through all of the categories, we're then going to narrow down which name in each category floats up to the top, again by suggestion and by vote. This process will take us up to the point in January where we will be coming down with our, here's our recommendation and final discussion among the group. Now, here's one of the things that I'm going to ask, and that is we have a meeting on the 16th of this month, and we have a meeting on the 2nd of December. At that point in time, the 2nd, we will be closing the possible suggestions in the categories. So the idea is that we're going to put suggestions into the categories. We'll start our discussion on them. At the end of the meeting on December the 2nd, suggestions will stop, and then we will work with what we have at that point to doing our our discussion and narrowing down to the name option. So we're going to narrow it down to one name that will be in each category, and then ultimately which name from the 6 categories will rise up to the top. So during the month of December, again, narrowing down the names in each category. Notice that I'm giving you time to be able to have conversations. After next meeting, which will be on the 16th, then we'll have a little bit of time. Well, that'll be our Thanksgiving holiday. We'll come back together on the 2nd. You may have more suggestions that you want to put up into one of the categories. So then we'll then spend our last meeting in December, and then our sets of meetings. We have more in January than any of the other months to actually whittle down what it is that we're going to make a suggestion to City Council about. I expect our meetings to be very cordial. I expect our meetings to have great discussion. Again, I talked at the last meeting that having a rationale for a suggestion is very positive for us to be able to have a good discussion. Why specifically this name, and why, what is it about this name? Keep in mind that the name is going to fall into one of the 6 categories. Use these categories as a filter. If for some reason the name that is being suggested, or whatever whatever the name is that's being suggested, it fits into one of these 6 categories. And if for some reason it doesn't fit into one of these 6 categories, then we need to take a look at, is this a name that we want to bring before the whole committee as we begin our discussion on trying to narrow it down to that one name that we will be submitting at the first City Council meeting, which is going to be in February. All right. So at this point in time, I'm open to comments. Yes, ma'am. Wilma.
I have questions more than comments.
Okay.
Okay. How would citizens be able to suggest? I mean, there are 15 of us and we know people, but we don't know the majority of people who live in Kyle. So, and, we saw Bert put something on Nextdoor, and there was a lot of
Right.
discussion on Nextdoor, but again, those people aren't the majority of Kyle.
Correct.
So does the committee have an email or where people can send us suggestions other than those that were on Nextdoor? Or can we ask about it in the newsletter that's coming out, comes out every Friday? And if we can, where can they send them where that we can review them and get more suggestions from more people who live in Kyle?
Okay, so great question. One of the things that we talked about is the idea that we are representing our neighbors. And for the most part, the conversations that you're going to have with your neighbors that live in your area, the people that you may see in the grocery store, folks that you have some interaction with, because 15 people is a lot of people in this small town. And we're diversely spread all over the city of Kyle. And so it's not that so basically you're going to have this interaction with your neighbors. I'm going to have interaction with my neighbors. If someone is posting something on their Facebook page on this committee, if they're going into their next door, that's another way of doing it.
HOAs.
I'm sorry?
HOAs.
Thank you. HOAs, because I understand that some of us have gone through that measure. You're going to, for the most part, figure out how you're going to make that connection to get that information with people. If somebody is interested in saying something, someone could contact one of the staff members here at the City of Kyle, because on the last newsletter that came out, it may be the City of Kyle calendar, there was a list of our names as well as the staff members who are assigned to us that was posted. So going to that newsletter, going to the City of Kyle's website would be a way of finding out how to get connected with us. We're not going to per se have a we're not going to have a email address for each of us that someone would be able to talk to and that sort of thing. We're representing our neighborhoods, and so we're having conversations with people in our neighborhoods. So we're not going to have the city set up any kind of media, whereas someone could contact us, do a special type of email. We're going to figure out how to do that for ourselves. And you had another question?
No, I'm going to think about what you said.
Okay, okay. Others?
Did-
Fred?
Madam Chair, did we not talk about a portal or some kind of a thing on a section on the city website where people could submit information or suggestions? Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, at this point, it was my understanding that the summary and where all of the committee members, that you would submit your information and the ideas that you have for internal review,
Okay.
and that's how it's set up currently.
Right.
Would it be an option for you to consider something like that where anyone could go to the city's website? I mean, it'll be voluminous, I grant you, but that's why we have the process of eliminating them. And I'm not trying to create more work for you, but I just don't want to be accused at the end of the process that, you know, there wasn't enough opportunity for us to do it. I'm quite happy with the system we've set up, and I've took it upon myself to reach out to people and seek their input and seek their advice through my HOA. And I've received many, many, many suggestions, but that was an avenue I used. And I'm going to use my church, and I'm going to use my own neighborhood.
Right.
So, and that's true about city council members in Kyle or anywhere else. When you appoint people to any of your commissions, they don't come to you. You go seeking, you go ask people, the chamber. So that's a pretty heavy burden that we have. And that is to solicit that information and seek that information and then funnel it through the committee. Again, I'm not suggesting to create more work for you, but if it's not doable, then, you know, you need to tell me that so I can shut up.
Well, let me answer that question. I think at this point, when City Council was in the process of naming this street and put forth the name and what is the word I'm looking for? The community basically said, we have an issue with that. City Council therefore said, well, let's put together a committee of citizens. We'll let people who have an interest in this task apply, and we will take those names and we will create a committee. Originally, the committee deadline was submitted, and people had about a week to apply if they were interested. And then the city council met, and some city council members said, well, I've had communication with folks in my area who said they didn't have the opportunity within the week to apply for the committee. So then city council reopened the deadline for more people to apply, which meant we went from 7 to 15. As I remember correctly, one of the city council members said, the more the merrier in regards to sitting on this committee. Now, I took that as city council saying, if those folks out there are very strongly, have strong opinions about what it is that we should or shouldn't be doing in renaming this street, they can apply to be on that committee. It did. It went from 7 to 15. And so as I see it now, We represent our communities, we represent our neighborhoods, our churches, our homeowners associations, and we are put together in order to now come up with the potential names and ultimately the one name. So we don't have a lot of time to do this. This is not a project that we have between now and May. We set our timeline to end by the end of January. And so with that said, we are going to use our own revenues in regards to talking with our neighbors, our community, etc., in regards to how we're going to find this name. Every single meeting, which has been posted, gives an opportunity for citizens to come and speak before us and tell us, give us their piece. We've had one citizen to do it tonight, and we have a few more meetings coming up where that could still be addressed. So I'm actually quite satisfied with this process that we're going to be using, where we serve as the mouthpiece for our neighborhoods in order to come up with this name. I think the city council has put forth efforts into getting us to a point where we have representatives across the city. And so now, as we took on the task of working on finding these names, we will find avenues to make those connections with our neighbors in order to narrow this down. And believe it or not, we basically had 9 meetings that we put before us to come up with a plan. Some of us wanted to get this over and quickly done. Others of us said, let's take a little time. We found a happy medium. And so I'm happy with the happy medium. And therefore, let's go forth now and you figure out how you are going to have conversations with others to get those names, to get those potential names so we can have our discussion. We'll probably be ending this meeting in an hour like we've been doing thus far. I cannot promise that for our next set of meetings because we're going to be having discussion and they're going to go a little bit longer. And so keeping that in mind, our task is the names that folks have given you, the names that you've come up with, the names that you've solicited from however you've done it will be brought forward looking at our filter of these 6 categories and thus coming up with discussion and ultimately coming down to narrowing down our list to one name.
I'm not suggesting that we abdicate our responsibilities to council. What I'm saying is I want to make sure that people understand that we are going through this process. And I know that the meetings are placed on the council's website or whatever you call it. But I think far more people read the newsletter that comes through our emails than they do council minutes. And I don't want us to have to go through this again, or council to have to go through where people say they didn't know that they were renaming it and named it something nobody liked, and then there's another brouhaha over the names. So I would like to see it specifically stated in the newsletter that we are going through this process, and if you have suggestions, contact one of the people who are on the committee. I mean, I can talk to the people in my neighborhood who I know, but I don't know everybody in my development.
Oh, and that's
Excuse me, I'm still talking.
Go ahead.
So I don't know everybody in my
Kamala.
development. So I think that will then keep everything. We don't have to worry about people then saying they didn't know like they said the last time. It is likely we're not going to get a whole lot, but at least we can point to it and say you had the opportunity and you didn't take advantage of it.
Are you done?
Yes, I am.
Good. Is there any reason we can't do what she's suggesting?
Well, I wanted to clarify, there were 2 things. One was for residents to be able to actually submit their ideas for a name into the portal. Or the other thing that I heard was just to better notify that this process is happening and to participate by citizen comment or by contacting a committee member. So are you suggesting the first or the second?
No, my question regarding the first, was that available? And it was no. So I don't need you to create it, but I just want to make sure that citizens understand that we're going through the process.
Because we could absolutely do more to push the process and even the timeline if that's the will of the
Right.
committee.
Not
Yeah.
change your timeline. I'm fine with your timeline.
Okay. So I'm thinking that we can put more information into the newsletter. There's information already on the website. We can put more information into the newsletter and just let everybody know about the process. Citizens also have the opportunity at their leisure to relook at this meeting that we're taping right now, which is how I'm getting a majority of information from people that don't necessarily live in Kensington Trails. They are getting, I think it's too many of us at one time. I'm sorry. We're here noticing there's a buzz going on. And I think there are too many microphones open at one time. So basically, I'm getting emails from folks that I know that don't live in my homeowners area who are saying, I saw your tape the other night. Here's my comment. That's what I'm getting. So, and, there's various ways. So yes, I think that during the fullness of time that we have, which is not a whole lot, we can put a little bit more information into the newsletter. And again, I looked at the newsletter that came out, no, I'm sorry, I looked at Facebook and clicked on Facebook and it talked about this committee. And then from that, you clicked on another link and it had all of our names and it had our schedule of all of our meetings for the most part. So we can do a little bit more in saying, here's our timeline. But we did specify in our last communication to the public when we plan on being done. So we can make that a little bit clearer, is where it's certainly a way we can go, knowing that we have a little bit of time to do this.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
It was my understanding that there would be an online forum where the general citizenry that was not able to attend a meeting would be able to submit something online. Is that something that does exist, or is that not in the plans to build something like that?
We did not discuss that, and know that it's not in our plans to build a portal where just anyone could go in and be able to make a suggestion or a comment that we would read. The idea is that we were going to go out and have these kinds of conversations, and there are several reasons. As you take a look at putting together this portal, so it could be easily said that with such a portal, that one person can submit 1,000 suggestions, one person alone, right? And then, so let's say 8 people did that. How much time do we have to have something like that done? So that's one thing to think about. The other thing is, again, I want to go back to the city council open this opportunity for anybody to participate. And 15 people volunteered. If 20 people would have volunteered, they would have put 20 people on this committee. 15 people volunteered. And so with the 15 people from around the city of Kyle, we're going to make this decision and then submit it to city council. And then city council can then take on their role to do what they wanted to do next. But our role as being representatives of our neighborhood is to do this process that we can clearly put up on any kind of publication from the city as to how we're doing this, and then we move on with the process. But to answer your
Okay.
question, no, we were not going to set up a portal where anyone could be able to respond to or put suggestions on.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood that from last meeting then.
Okay. Other committee members, comments?
Madam Chair, this is Gilbert. I've got a comment. I really appreciated that we had someone come in before the committee to present their name that they'd like to have. And I don't know if we can, on the newsletter, we can really encourage folks that are very interested in renaming to come in, because
Right.
3 minutes is a lot of time to make your case.
Right.
And, I really appreciate her coming in. I also want to make a comment about, I was really, I looked at the next door comments that came in,
Mhm.
and I don't know if y'all noticed how many comments came in. It was certainly a lot more than what I ever thought I'd see. Just on one person, saying they'd like to, ask people to share their comments. So I want to add that we really have our hands full, because there's a lot of folks that are looking at us, maybe not necessarily putting in any comments outside from what that next door was, but visiting with my neighbors, and I only had an opportunity to visit with 5 that I know, and the rest, I'm kind of reserved, because right now, knocking on people's doors, it's just, they don't know you. All of a sudden, you're a salesman, and you end up with your picture on next door saying, I'm coming to sell something or something. But so I'm trying to avoid that.
Right.
So with the 5 that I talked to, all 5 of them basically had the same recommendation. And I said, expanding on it, I wanted to add more on the comment side for where we have the opportunity. But the big thing was, if we have to make us a name, it really needs to be local. And I know that's one of our 5 that we need to look at, and familiar with the area and all such. I think that I certainly, it has opened my eyes on how much interest there is in the city of Kyle. Thank you for your time.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. So, Gilbert, that was a great perspective you gave. And so, one of the things that I would say is, as we're looking at these categories that we have before us, and you're looking at whichever portal you're looking at, then that's a great way to gather some names to add to the categories. Something that popped out, something that you saw when you read it, appeared several times. Go on to our little piece that we have and enter it. Because what will happen is, as these names have been put into this internal piece that we're looking at, we're going to look at the list in each category on screen, that anybody that happens to be listening to us or joining us at a meeting from Channel 10 or whatever would also be able to see. So this is not a hush-hush process where we're going to keep it real quiet. That's not going to be the case at all. We're just looking at the amount of time we have and ways that we're going to gather information for our neighbors. I am very much aware of what COVID has stopped us from doing. All right. Might I also add to those that are listening, Mrs. McMahon came down personally to give her citizens comments. You can also do it virtually. You can call us by 12 o'clock on the day of our meeting and say, I would like to speak my 3 minutes on behalf of your particular name. So there's 2 ways of doing this. So just so everybody knows, we're not putting you on a special list so that you can come and talk to us. It's not anything like that. And when you take a look on the information that is provided by the city, the information that talks about the 3 minutes or the citizens' comments is listed. If we need to highlight it for you a little bit more, we certainly can do that. But you being able to speak for 3 minutes at the beginning of our meeting is something that, we will continue to do. So please keep in mind that, you couldn't make it down, but you can give us a virtual chit chat. That would be, that's nice. We can hear what you have to say as we're looking at all of these different suggestions that are coming before us. So I did want to mention that for the most part. But again, committee members, if you have a certain portal that you've been following, then look and see what's being offered. Is someone giving a suggestion and giving a rationale that you can go in and put in so that we can pull that list up? We will be looking at all of the suggestions on the cultural that were given to us. And we'll go through each one of them and have a discussion about them. And we're actually going to figure out a way for us to be able to vote on it where we can actually see how the vote is going. So we're working on those components for the most part. So, let us know what else we can do. We heard strongly that we need to provide as many opportunities and information out to the public that this process is going on. And we will use every type of portal that the city has in order to make sure that that happens. Other comments, committee members?
Go ahead.
Well, I was curious, when we come and find names and recommendations, I understand that we have 6 categories, but what if we find names that fit multiple categories? Do we label them all together and what categories they fit in, or do we choose one primary one?
Will our will our thing be set up where you can click more than one?
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go,
Cool.
yeah. Okay. All right, so hopefully everybody understood that part. When you're looking at putting in your suggestion and you see the categories, you can hit more than one. That's more than welcome, something that you can do. Okay? Fred, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, Manager, just real quick, we ought not to lose sight either that we have city staff that is exposed to citizenry every day as opposed to us. And we have 7 people that are city council members that also are a tremendous resource for the committee. I've had 2 council members forward information to me that came to them. So we should use our council members who appointed us as a great resource.
Right. Thank you. That's a good point. I've also had a council member that has sent me information. So I guess the overall perspective is there's many mediums and avenues to which information can come to us, and use the one that is the most resourceful for you, whatever that might be. I had the opportunity of talking to citizens during early voting. And if we had a line, I went outside and said, hey, by the way, what part of town do you live in? And actually said, I'm on the committee. And do you have any suggestions? I had quite a few, just from people saying, as a matter of fact, I do. So, that was an avenue that I had, per se. I don't go to church here in Kyle, so I wouldn't be asking anybody at my church in Austin about the city in Kyle. But some of you who do go to church here in Kyle, or whatever, however you worship, or whatever it is that you have another connection to that's very much connected to Kyle, use that as an avenue. Please don't go out knocking on doors. And, please practice social distance. That's our little obstacle that we certainly have, that we need to pay attention to. And I want everybody to be as safe as possible as we go through this process. Other committee members? Okay. All right, by all means, chime in if you need to. So, Samantha, one of the things I asked you to do when I came in earlier was, could you give us some bit of updated information about the categories, what we have right now based on committee members who have started to put information in?
Yes, ma'am. Let me bring that up for you. So on the screen here are all of the names that have been entered into the portal, and they are alphabetized. So I'll leave it on here for a second for everyone to review. Again, all committee members do have access to this, and I will, following tonight's meeting, resend that information out. And then this is how it breaks down by category. Again, one street name suggestion can have multiple categories, but this is the breakdown as of today.
Okay. All right, I'm giving everybody a little minute to study what we have before us. So I think, as you can see, this strategic way of us getting ready to begin our task and continuing our task is will work out for us for the most part. We know that we have a way now of documenting information that we're getting from our neighbors, friends, etc., and how we can get them in so that we can start looking at them. So for instance, we have about 10 minutes left of this meeting tonight. As I said, I was going to keep us on time. I will say, as for certain, our next meeting, we will be more than an hour, just so everybody kind of put that on their calendar with babysitting and taking care of family needs and whatnot. But just for instance, we could take a look at the 8 names under historical and begin to have a conversation about these particular 8 names in regards to any rationale was listed with the particular names that fell under historical and what other information do we have. So, because we're going to have discussions for the most part, why was this name put before us, and what are our perspective? Whereas someone would say, well, that name sounds perfect to me because, why not such and such? And another member would say, I'm offended by it. Okay? We don't want that among our committee members. And truth be told, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we can unanimously come up with a name that we send before City Council. We all fully back that one name after discussion and having time to even do a little research. There was a name that popped up that you looked at and you said, well, I found out this about that name, which could change thinking because more information was given, those kinds of things. But I'm hoping that we get a unanimous decision on the name that goes before. And I realize that that's a wishful dream, but I'm going to have a wishful dream and hope that we all can come up with this name that we all believe that truly we could all back 100% and said, yes, send this name before to the city council, and then let the city council do their job at that point, because our job is over. We made the recommendation, we've done our job. And then city council can then decide what happens next as we've been tasked to do. So that's, now that you know my dream, is that we get this 100%. And, I realize there's a lot of discussion that will have to happen for that to happen. And we have a time limit that we place before ourselves so that we could get this job done for what we were asked to do. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Comments?
Chair, I just wanted to add one more thing. We went through Article 7, and it very clearly goes through the categories and asking the questions and things for the committee to consider. But I also wanted Steve to remind the committee the one extra step to keep in mind, which is really important as we
Yes.
work through this process.
So the other thing that needs to be kept in mind is that emergency services will have to approve this name, whatever name you recommend, and that it can't be a duplicate or a similar spelling of another name in the area. And there's a few constraints about initials, directions, and things like that. Those are pretty rare that they come up, but I think I'm going to take a look at the list in the future, and then I can kind of guide you as to what names we really can't
Pursue.
pursue,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That's good. So we won't waste time discussing those.
Right, good point, thank you, very good point. And then remember from our last meeting, also, we had some information that came to us from the Chamber of Commerce, because we instructed staff to have a conversation with them. And another information that came up was, actually somebody had emailed me and said, have you thought about the repercussions of cost for people involved on that road? And my response to them was, we actually had that conversation, and would you go look at the meeting from the 29th, because we had specific information about that at that meeting in the presentation. And then the person responded, oh, thank you. Okay, yeah. Because I didn't want to do this long email explaining what we had already talked about. So again, let me also emphasize that if something pops up that we need to have a discussion about, we've already talked about on our radar is the expenses, or what does that mean to people living along that road and making changes for their businesses and that kind of thing. We've had a discussion with the Chamber of Commerce and what they thought our process looked like and if they had any suggestions for us. We're going to continue to talk about the safety perspective in regards to whether or not the emergency department is going to have any issues. We're going to continue to have that discussion, and so I'm glad that Steve said I'll keep an eye out for that. We had a discussion on, what's going on with this road while this 150 can't be used like it is right now. And we actually pulled out maps and said, here's what's going to happen in the future. So there's lots of information that we've received, and if there's other information that you think we need to know, send me an email and tell me so I can tell staff to look that up so we can have that kind of information as we move forward. So I was just trying to anticipate everything that I could think of that we needed to know as we go further. So I'm going to say, as you take a look at those questions that we were looking at in section 38.333, look at those questions again. And as you're looking at the suggestions that you're getting from folks, how does that name connect to these questions? And 4 of them I pulled out. But look at all of them for the most part, and how do they make sense? Because what I'm trying to do is for us to have this filter to knock out a couple of things. So I don't know, and if you're a Disney fan, forgive me, but a suggestion of let's just name it Mickey Mouse. Well, okay, first of all, that doesn't fit into one of these categories. And, secondly, how does that connect to these questions that are here before us in the chart already? So just some filtration to be able to look through as you go forth. And then I also ask that many committee members have already said, I have names. I have names that people have given me that I have and whatnot. Let's start getting those in so we can start that review process. And we're going to come back next week with a reminder of the filter and then beginning the process of looking at the names and making some decisions. Questions, comments?
Okay, here's what I found online.
Okay, now I set that off. I'm just saying. Okay, that's the 3rd time that has happened to me.
You asked.
I asked. I guess that's right.
And Siri asked, who responded?
Yes, I asked. I don't know how Siri is reading my voice when I turn her off, but okay, I did ask, didn't I? Okay, does anybody other than Siri have any comments, concerns, questions?
That's priceless.
Well, you got to have some fun.
I know.
I'm hoping we have some fun with this.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that our discussion is a discussion where we feel as though we had a good time and a good discussion. I would hate for any of us to walk away from this meeting that we're already volunteering our time to walk away extremely frustrated and stressed. I'm hoping that's not the case at all. But we can do our task in coming up with this name ultimately that we will submit to City Council. So with that said, it is about...
Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
I just had a quick question. On the
Please.
online portal, whenever
Yes.
we submit a name, we gotta write the comment. Do the other community members have a chance to read over that comment and make a comment of their own, or is that just?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm gonna share this with you. That's what it looks like. And what I did is I went to what we've been talking about, this way of us to gather information, and I just went on my computer and made printed a copy of it so you could see what it would look like for the most part. And any of you, those of you at home in front of a computer right now, look at Samantha's email where you can see where she was building the tool that we're going to be using and how we've extended it. And so that would be a question to ask, is how will we be able to see all of the information?
Right, so if I submit a name and I write a comment, do the other committee members have a chance to see the comment that I wrote down?
Yeah, so all of the entries, when you enter it into the portal, when you're done and you hit submit, then you see everything else.
There you go.
I also have an option though, and it occurred to me as we've had this conversation this evening, that it can export it to like an Excel.
Okay.
And so I can share that as well. That might be easier for the group.
Okay. Okay.
right, thank
Thank
you.
you, good idea, thank you. All right,
Question.
yes.
In regards to the portal as well, is there a way to look at that list without submitting?
Once I do the Excel, that's kind of the workaround there.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay. All right, the good point, because if something has already been submitted like 7 times, then why do I need to put an 8th one in? So if I got to see what the Excel list looked like, that would take care of that. So good question. All right.
You can also just.
Ma'am, I didn't hear the question.
Okay. The question was, can you go in and look at the portal and see what's already been added without adding something first? And the answer was yes, because you will be able to take the information and export it into an Excel or something like that, so you could take a look at what's already on there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
But
absolutely.
now you can do it now too. You just call up the form, hit the empty
Will
submit.
you turn your mic on? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
I'm sorry. You can do it now. You just call up the form, hit the empty submit, and it takes you to the drop-down box where you can see everything that's been submitted.
Okay,
But in Excel is better.
okay. Thanks for that. All right, she said Excel, woman said Excel works best. She's already tried the process. Thank you. We have some experience with it. All right, other questions?
To move to adjourn?
Okay. We have a movement to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I will second.
that.
Second.
All right, and we have a second.
I don't know who said second first.
I don't either.
I think it was Anthony. Okay.
Oh, it wasn't Nick? Because Nick's picture popped
I don't
up.
think it matters.
Okay, all right. She's just trying to get a proper recording for the minutes, so that's why she needed to know a name.
See you next time,
It doesn't
Nick.
matter to me.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And I look forward to our meeting is it next Monday? It's next Monday, right? It's next Monday, the 16th. I look forward to same place, same time. And I'll see you then with our discussion to be at hand. Have a good evening.